No, yeah, we're the binary repository, we're also the creators of Maven, and now we have a new tool that's focused on open source hygiene. But I'm not trying to get too, this is not about my company so much as really I want people to think about what we can do to make this better, make it more secure, go faster. You know, that's really what this is about.
So when you talk about this,
Oh, sorry.
sorry. So security, like security is a very wide term, right? So for example, we can say application-specific security, like SQL injection would also be considered.
Yeah.
But I don't think that could be covered over here, right? Because that is something related to the application development and the way that we do it. It's not deliberately, causing issues.
Well, it's yes and no. So yes, you can write your own code that could allow for SQL injection. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is borrow a component that already has one.
Right. Component level security
Right.
will help us with respect to those components that we are getting from outside. But is there a way that we scan the applications to see that if suppose the application has vulnerability issues or something, that we have a mechanism over
Yeah,
here?
well, I mean, think about how we used to do that. We used to do that with penetration testing, right? So you have a pen test team, and it's their job to attack your app. They use Metasploit kits, but they're not as good as the Metasploit kits the hackers have.
Yeah.
Right?
You can run, there's an OWASP project called ZAttack Proxy.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing, and it's automated, you can automate it.
It's
but-
OS?
But
Yeah, it's open source.
yeah, but what I'm suggesting is this. So instead of trying to defend the castle after the castle's been built, what if we just built the castle to be secure? And we always like to think we're doing that. And I agree, there's a broader term. There's network security, there's other issues that I am not talking about. But what I'm talking about that's relatively easy is to stop using things that are known bad. And complement that with other things like static code analysis, like dynamic testing. You still use application firewall, still use runtime application security, still think about network security, still think about using analytics and looking at pattern behavior and cross application log event correlation. You still have to do all of those things. But what I also can tell you is Equifax was the direct result of a component that had a untrusted deserialization, full remote code execution flaw that was in their system that they were unaware of, and it got attacked within 2 days of that vulnerability being made public.
And it's the easiest way to get into a system
It is,
these
but
days.
hackers are lazy. They do not want to do hard
A
work.
lot of the SQL injection stuff, there's linters and other things available that will pull it out. But I'll do the Sonatype plug.
No, please don't.
If you could be perfect in prod today, right? If a 0-day vulnerability comes out and the right group of people is aware of it, they're going to automate a scan to go find that exploit in the wild and get what data they can because it's new and you haven't patched yet. So it's one of these things where if you're managing your dependency chain, it's a quick fix. If you're in Java, to update the build version or the version of a plugin you're using or a dependency in Maven, it's very quick to do. If you've got automated testing set up, it's very easy to run this through UAT and get it approved for release.
There's a break fix build. That is
Correct.
that is the fastest path to problem.
If you're not checking any of this stuff though, you're a sitting duck. It's really a matter of time. And that's exactly what happened with Equifax. The stretch thing was big enough and visible enough that it was, you were telling a story earlier today of a CISO that decided to unplug a machine because he could justify the downtime easier than he could in a vulnerability breach if it happens, right?
Right.
So it gets into this risk profile situation where you're literally better off 404 unavailable than on the front page of the Wall Street Journal the next day. And with SQL injection and static code scanning, it takes a lot longer to do the analysis, and it's a lot harder to remediate too.
The other thing we all know Equifax because that was obviously the big headline news for us. But the Canadian IRS had also been attacked prior to Equifax, and it was well known within the security community. And we're talking now at about the 24-hour range that this was a very real vulnerability and an exploit was in the wild. Because that's the two things. You're like, oh, sure, it's vulnerable, but is it really vulnerable? Is anybody actually exploiting this? So it was like within 24 hours of this going public, Canadian IRS site went down, they were attacked, they went down, that was known. One of our customers was like, yeah, hell no, and he unplugged his server, because he knew it had struts, and he knew that an exploit was in the wild. Equifax just didn't know. Now, in court, he said, well, actually, we did know, and our guy didn't patch it, but that's kind of actually BS. They were trying to push that down and fire the little guy. The reality was they did not have the visibility to know that that component was in that app, and they were vulnerable until after the fact.
So how many people?
So that's the two compare and contrast. And this is, again, it's not about us, but that basic fundamental problem, because let's take struts out of it, let's make this a non-SONA type thing. It was OpenSSL and Heartbleed before that. That was an OS level one. It could be known exploits in the Tomcat server, HTTPD, that's a middleware one, right? It's happened, if you just sort of look at the history of big exploits and just go look at what they've been, all the most recent ones have been a known vulnerable component that people, and as a hacker, all I gotta do is go out and say, you know what, I'm just gonna spray 1,000 sites. I'm gonna get in a couple of them, and I'm gonna get data, and I'm gonna make a bunch of money off of it, because I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna have people's names, addresses, and social security numbers, and bank accounts. I'm gonna have all of it, and I'm just gonna start selling it on the dark web. And it's an easy payday, because you don't have to be an advanced nation state to make this attack. You can literally be at the skill level of a script kiddie with the right exploit kit from the dark web, and you can be the guy exfiltrating data and selling it on the dark web. Any of us probably have enough skills to do it. It is not a high bar to get across. It doesn't take a Russian, South North Korean, like we'd like to think that that's what it takes. It just doesn't take that. It is not that complicated.
It's like a 3-page walkthrough.
Right.
Once it's been commoditized.
Yeah.
It's out on the market.
These exploit kits are literally shotguns. You just point it at a website, it tries 100 different things, and if it can get 2 pieces of buckshot through, they're in. That's all, it's like, oh, I can deserialize and I can remote code execute. And it used to be in the past, you would get it from 2 different components. I would deserialize through this known bad component, and I would get this one to go execute it.
If there are any security folks, what other, like, after the application is deployed, what sort of testing or not testing?
It's just monitoring, it's constant monitoring,
That's
log
it?
monitoring of, you're looking at user activity. Does it look like real user activity, or does it look like different user activity? Like, so that's all analytics, machine learning kind of stuff, just watching your logs, watching behaviors, and looking for what appears anomalous.
And I'm an advocate of bug bounty programs. I think it's Google, it's like $6,006.13 because it spells out Google. But if you find a vulnerability in the Google stack and let them know about it, they cut you a check. So it's like, go hunt on our website, but don't sell that. Let us know, we'll pay you. And I've worked for places that have gotten notified where it's like, hey, we found this vulnerability, and we're gonna announce it publicly on this date, and they want to lawyer up and attack them, and I'm like, they didn't ask for any money, they're not trying to blackmail you, they gave you time to remediate, they want you to fix this before it gets public. But if you don't fix it, they want to let the consumer market know that there's a problem here and you're at risk. It's ethical hacking, right?
Right.
Right, this is more of application level security. So what about denial of service? So if suppose
Many
it
of
comes
these
to containers-
components lead to denial of service. So I like to talk about deserialization, remote code execution, because it's obvious that's how I can own your server or pwn your server. But denial of service, there's a lot of the known vulnerabilities are, I can just take a massive payload and throw it at some endpoint, and your app will spend all of its time trying to deal with that and stop servicing requests. So that's a perfectly valid, another attack vector. It's just not nearly as sexy or as damaging. And that's where, the Akamai's of the world and then come in, and you can start to fight that out at the perimeter, right? You can start to pick up on it and start to change, and you can start to. So denial of service, like the GitHub one recently, like those are just becoming passé. Like most people didn't even notice. Like, is it really a denial of service if nobody noticed your service wasn't available?
But if suppose, like, do we have a mechanism with respect to containers to, protect against these sort of, denial of service or something like that? Because it's
There's nothing. I think one of the things to wrap your head around is there's nothing fundamentally different about containers in the context of that question. It's all the exact same mechanics. the containers just as a way to portably move that stuff around that doesn't rely on static environments and sort of guarantees that it'll run on the laptop and this cloud or that cloud always the same way. Because I'm shipping an entire, full stack, I don't have to worry about when I deployed my code over here, the wrong JVM version was there and therefore it never even started. Like that doesn't happen with containers. It's not to say there aren't other issues with containers, but the rest of our app security mentality, none of that changes. Just forget what you think you know about containers, and yes, that's all that still applies.
That's the guy. Let's hear it for Kurt.
Thanks, guys. I've talked way too much today.
Who here works at New?
Who in here's new? He's new.
Are you the organizer? Or-
Yeah.
Okay. I work for Elastic. I don't know if you've heard of Elasticsearch, but we do.
We use you.
You use
Let's
us.
rebuild.
Okay, actually, my account rep, Matt Petrie, said he knows folks in your side.
Ray Prescott or Brian Fox.
Probably. Yeah. Well, what I was going to throw out there, for what it's worth, is I'd imagine you meet monthly or bi-monthly or something. You have this meeting.
I'm from Connecticut.
Every month, every month.
Every month? Okay, so basically everyone's in DevOps here, right? So essentially, are you using Elastic? Are you using Elasticsearch or logs or?
We use with Jenkins. We use with Jenkins.
With Jenkins. Okay, so what I was gonna offer is, if you're interested, I could show up in a month and do a demo on how you can collect logs and do operational analytics to understand how servers are running across your instances of containers, et cetera. If that's of interest to you, I could do that. I did it down in Houston at a DevOps group and it seemed to be pretty valuable to them.
So this
Yes, fine.
log analyzer, what sort of value you think that, yes, we would be having tons of logs or on a long
Oh,
run
yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah,
So what sort of value that you think that, probably, we would be able to get by analyzing these logs? Yes, it is valuable.
The
But,
logs?
since you see
Yeah.
it from, Elastic, search perspective,
Yep.
what is the maximum value that, you see that, you are?
That could be a whole day long conversation right there, but it's a great question. So there are different types of logs. So there's logs, so when we think about logs, like what kind of logs are you working with?
We have Log4j, like application
4j.
logs is what
App
we
logs.
mostly have, app logs, because we
Right.
would be having the debug info
Yep.
and all
Yep.
those things over
Yep.
there.
So generally, when you're looking at application logs, you're looking at transaction times, you're looking at exceptions that would be raised, you're looking at things that APM does. We have an APM solution. But the idea would be to collect what's happening at application or server level, bringing it into a place where you can visualize how fast servers are, how fast transactions are, what are the types of activities that clients are doing. So business metrics, too. You can infer that from the logs. So for example, if you have logs, let's say it's an e-commerce site, and there are logs that are being created where people are going shopping and you're seeing what they're clicking. You can identify the customer activity. You can see, you can understand from a marketing standpoint what's going on.
Next step.
Does that help? Like, it's all over the place.
Yeah, because
There's so
what
many
we
things.
used is for the troubleshooting purpose based on the logs.
Yeah.
For searching, we were using it for, troubleshooting purpose.
Troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
other than that, I just wanted to see what exactly is being used across is what I was.
Yeah. No, so I have a broad demo that shows business metrics,
I think we have
application
as much, they're just
metrics,
different. And I think
and
that's what
APM
most people's
data,
problem is if
all
you
central,
throw Nexus 2
if you will,
APIs, now it's-
and
it doesn't work
visualized
anymore.
using Elasticsearch under the
So,
hood.
I feel you.
So if you like, I
Yeah.
can do that next week.
No,
Give
actually,
me a
it's
card,
there
give a
now.
card, I
The
can-
class I gave this
tomorrow
morning, we were
can
showing the
talk.
provision API.
Sure.
I think it's
Unfortunately, I'm a
pretty
solution
good,
architect, so I don't have
although
a
it's
card.
still,
No
I think
problem.
it's
We can get-
clumsy,
But
the
you need
way
to-
they've implemented.
Yeah, let me do that.
Of course,
Um,
it is.
a month or so
Yeah.
ago,
A market.
we had
Okay.
several large
Just-
customers
So I
give us
asked
very
the
candid
person
feedback, very similar to what
who
you are. I
organized
think
this,
finally,
right?
Yeah.
the engineering
The lady, she
team has
sent the
had to
emails
take
and
notice.
everything.
I think
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see it.
So I asked her to,
Yeah, okay.
The problem with our
Absolutely.
API now is not
Contact
that
you?
it's
Uh,
incapable, it's
yes.
that you have
Okay,
to
yeah,
do three
perfect.
things
You
to
put the
do one
email
thing.
there?
Like, that's the
There's
problem
my
with the API now.
What was your
And
name
so
again?
why can't I make another
Jeff,
API where I
yeah,
pass in
yeah.
what I need that with one call and
So
do
Jeff,
the
uh,
3
right,
calls and get
get
the
us-
one thing I need? Like that's,
Elastic.
I think that's the
Elastic.
next thing for us is to
It's
do a better
Elastic.co,
job
no conflict.
thinking about the API
Yes, it's a
from a
Dutch
consumption
company.
standpoint and not simply
Yeah.
saying, hey, there's an API and you can do that with the API. It's like, yeah, but have you actually done it? Do you realize how tedious and hard that feels? Right, and I think that's where our engineering team has kind of woken up to that very recently. And I know our CIO was in back-to-back customer calls and right behind, it was right off of our SKO, and at our SKO, we were all like making the same pitch, like us in sales and marketing and product, the non-product side, we're all like on him, like, you gotta do a better job. And then he went out and talked to 2 big customers, and like, you gotta do a better job. He's like, man, when it rains, it pours. Like, you know, he was like, I get it loud and clear now, because everybody is telling me the exact same thing. So, I think you'll see an improvement. It's very capable today, I admit, it's very clumsy. It's much easier to write against the API of the IQ server than it is Nexus right now. Nexus,
And also for Nexus IQ, I don't think so like, some companies go with AV and some, for example, if, we start as initial, we don't want to have AV and we start with local users. And, there isn't any, AVs for Nexus IQ for end users, creating users. Automate
adding
creating
users.
Yeah, adding users there.
You know, that's interesting that you say that, because I
Creating
didn't,
users.
yeah, because I would argue that you don't really want to create your users there, you want to tie it off to some, you know, your IAM system and
And that's
LDAP
what I'm
groups.
saying. If that's not there, and if
Right.
you want to do it something, for example, at a local user.
Yeah.
Not in AD or IAM stuff.
Yeah.
In such case, I found APIs to, add
No,
users
you're
to
right.
groups, but,
Yeah.
but not to the user level, the creation
Yeah.
users.
We have a big internal focus right now on reducing that kind of friction. Like, so we think the product basically does what it needs to do. Now it's a chance for us to sort of go and get rid of those rough edges. And that's a good example of a rough edge that we need to do a better job.